Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Johnny Latner, 60 Televert Street, and I'm the co-founder of Pulse. And good evening, students, parents, community advisory board, Superintendent Anderson, and other guests from Jersey City and Patterson. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes had a #1 song, Wake Up Everybody, No More Sleeping in Bed. Well, tonight, I like to rename it Wake Up Newark. It's time to work together. Parents, teachers, students, community, and advisory board. Wake up Newark to the path of disfriendment and the total disrespect that's shown towards the community, advisory board, teachers, parents, and many of the thousands of students that has been pushed out by co-locations, turnarounds, hybrid, renewal, or whatever you want to call it in the past 2 years. Wake up Newark to the plan that the federal DOE, Artie Duncan, Governor Christie, Mayor Booker, the state educational SERF, and Superintendent Anderson, where the plan includes us but excludes us in the process without community input, but a lot of community outcry. Wake up Newark to the administrative staff and support staff being demoted, transferred, or fired because of close relationships with the parents in the community, while hiring individuals that can't and won't relate to the community. Wake up Newark to teachers' morale low with the current battle of the contract, which asks teachers to give back 2 years like they didn't work for it. I would like to ask you, Superintendent, or any other administrative staff, would you do that? No. Wake up Newark. We need to demand for local control because she don't respect you as an elected board, parents, community as a whole. Wake up Newark. She's carrying out the plan like a puppet on a string. We must work together towards making sure all students receive the best education that the community be not only the plan, but involved in the process in the beginning, middle, and end. Let's stop school closings and build them and fix them resources and give them resources where students, teachers, and the community can work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latner. Our next speaker, Betty Crockett.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm not a parent at the school, but I call myself a neighborhood lover in the village here. And what I'm looking for, because the children in the village affects me, affects the rest of the neighbors, I want the best for them as far as education. I want the school closing to stop. I want y'all to work harder to get back the control of the school system here. I want you all to work harder. You know who I voted for. You know me. I want something to happen. And I want something to happen good for these children. And I'm not going to take too much time. But like I said, I have no children in the school system here. But I live here. And you're my neighbor.
Thank you. Arnold B. Williams. Audrea Jackson. Audrea Jackson. Miss J.
So Miss J, 7th Avenue, Clinton Avenue. Anybody here with that name?
Vanessa Roper. Wilhelmina Holder.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Holder, I'm sorry, I was outside. Sometimes you just can't stomach what you hear. Tonight, I have a strong interest in finding out from the superintendent what is the plan, other than destruction. I've read bad plans. I've been part of good plans, mediocre plans. And what I see going on right now is no plan. As someone said, when you carry out someone else's orders, you need to put yourself in the position, can I be true to myself as a parent, and you are a parent? It's not just about the money for us. It's about my grandchildren and everyone else's grandchildren. I looked at the ACT scores, the results. Now, I have to put some of that at your foot because that was dismal. The results are in single digits in most cases. We didn't get the school-by-school analysis that we normally do so we can see where we can put extra resources and extra help for the teachers and the students. So I don't know why we are paying these data analysis people hundreds of thousands of dollars not to give us deep down resources and information. We said we're going college and credit readiness. Yet principals are without money in their budgets to support a college credit preparedness for our students. The demographers again lied. They said this number of children would be in the schools and more children showed up at the neighborhood schools. Did the principals get the money back to support those children? That's something that's very important to us. The professional development. The teachers are not getting what they need either. That's the other piece. We hire people to do professional development. I know for a fact that one session was held this past week or the week before, and they were talking to elementary school teachers about how to adapt 9th and 10th grade lessons to 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teachers. And then they told the teachers have high expectations, but yet they did not profile the lesson. There was no video, no interaction. So after 4 hours, I get calls from people saying, what is going on? They had a cup of coffee and they got a big headache. And that's a problem for me as a grandparent because our children will be harmed by this kind of practice. You cannot take money, in some cases I call it stealing money, from the neighborhood children, short them from Title I monies, and say you're doing the best for all the children. Even the reform schools, I was active at 13th Avenue and still am. That is not a panacea by no ways. We have teachers who are highly unqualified teaching autistic children. A high school teacher, science teacher teaching a 3rd grade autistic child, and no notice went home to the parents. There's a law. The parents should know who is in front of their children. There's a law. It's a massive disrespect. So in order for us, you talk about collaboration, we should be collaborating. But this is not collaboration when you disrespect the community and the parents because they have a 07103 through 07112 zip code. That is not.
Thank you, Ms. Holder. Thank you.
I need results, and we need to work together to make that happen. And Madam Chair, if they're not giving you the data and the board the data, it's time for us to do something different as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Lyndon Brown.
Good evening, Lyndon Brown, 220 South 6th Street in Newark. Again, I'm requesting a rollout, a community presentation of the spring 2012 NJS scores for the district, ward by ward, school by school if need be. We have not seen them. We're preparing our students for NJS 2013, and we haven't even seen the results of 2012. I think it's a travesty. Accountability. We still have far too many students who are special needs students whose IEP mandates them to have certain services Some of them are supposed to have a shared aid or personal aid. Some of them have been getting suspended and been getting into trouble. Classroom management has been very difficult for some of the teachers because those personal aids are not there for those children. The first cycle is almost over. We're going into second cycle, and what's been mandated and what's been in place in the IEPs for over 2 years, but now all of a sudden the aids cannot be given to these students, and the parents are complaining. My phone's ringing off the hook. Autonomy is just a travesty for some of our administrators who just are clueless in how to run a school. Some of our administrators are doing a fantastic job, but you've given autonomy to first-year principals who definitely need mentoring and monitoring, and it's not being done. And our children are the ones who are being shortchanged. Our renewed schools were supposed to have 4 components, which included wraparound, technology, GED and ESL classes for parents, and extended learning days. And that's only happened at several schools. Why is it that principals decide parents don't need a GED class or ESL classes in the community? Was a survey done? I don't think so. Parental involvement, we have administrators getting too involved in PTA and PTO matters, trying to manipulate the election process, and that needs to stop. And I think the No Child Left Behind waiver has caused setbacks in a lot of our schools, because for the past 5 or 10 years, many of our children have been able to access free tutorial. You know, some had tutors coming to their homes, and now all tutoring is school-based. Who's monitoring to make sure that tutorial is being provided for our children at the school-based level? Title I funding, a lot of it was held over last year. $3 or $4 million was not spent, yet we have children who are 3 and 4 and 5 grade levels behind. That's ridiculous. Security at some of our schools is understaffed. I go to some schools, I see that they have 8 and 9 and 10 security guards. At 13th Avenue School, we have almost 1,200 kids. We have 4 security guards. I went over to E. Alma Flag. They have 5 administrators, 5 vice principals. I go to 13th Avenue School. You have 4, all female with 1,200 students, and majority of them are first-year vice principals. You put these people in these schools, failing schools, 8, 9, 10 years failing with no experience. I think it's just a travesty. Between the nepotism and autonomy, enough is enough.
Thank you. Next speaker, Janice Reedus.
Madam Chair.
Excuse me, the next speaker is Janice Reedus.
I'll be her.
I'm
Madam
sorry,
Chair,
sir. The next speaker is Janice Reedus.
I have a student here. That wants to talk to the board. She's deaf. Her teacher got laid off, and she came here today.
Sir, the next, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you are not the next speaker. I have no problem. We will address what you are talking about, but right now we have to move on the speakers list. We will address your issue. Thank you. Is Janice Reedus here? Next speaker, Deborah Smith Gregory.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Race to the Top is due October 30th. It's a 200-plus page document. Can it be thoughtful and painstaking and methodically completed with a 1-hour public meeting at United Way? Break out the scores by school, not by race and gender. Stop the race. That display, that was very cursory. What is the hierarchy of this district? What does it mean enrollment and audit of these schools where it's so-and-so school? What are the names of the schools? What are the names of the schools where they're getting more money? You said that you did a lot, Superintendent, you said you did a lot to make sure that the students, that the families were engaged with the ACT scores. Exactly what was that? Did you direct them to the website? You know about that website. I keep complaining about it. The test scores for HESPER have not been released to the community, so we can gauge how our young people are doing. You say it's because it's not a rigorous test. However, that is the test that is used for graduation right now. So that test cannot be discounted. The dismal ACT scores should be analyzed, dissected, addressed, but I submit to you that there should be prep for the test in the high school, because the ACT in the high school is a college entrance exam, just like the SAT. The SAT and ACT preps are done in suburban districts as early as the 7th grade. For us to just throw that test at the students, it's just not fair. It's absolutely not fair. That ACT, SAT prep class should be integrated, or at the very least, because you keep saying we have this extended learning time, at least offer it there. What will be done to get them ready? What will be done to get our students ready? Our students are brilliant. We keep getting these negative reports, and I know that there's a lot of work to be done, but I rarely hear anything positive coming out of this board. And as Lucia says about the families, we want to be engaged. No, I do not have students that are young people who are directly in a public school, but I am a taxpayer and I do volunteer to work in schools. Finally, here is an example that you can follow. It is important to see what can happen within a school as opposed to always separating out of school. Look at Malcolm X Shabazz High School.
Thank you. Next speaker, Iman Brown. Next speaker, Donald Jackson.
Good evening, Donald Jackson, 80 Johnson Avenue, Newark, New Jersey, 07108. And if you didn't realize what that address was, you're sitting in 80 Johnson Avenue. You know, it's just so much stuff going on. And I'm sitting in the back talking to myself, and I'm like, where do I begin? Where do I begin? And let's talk about parental involvement for a second, because see, the district don't want no real involvement. The district does not want any real parent involvement, okay? Because if you did, you know who to go to. You know who to talk to, okay? You got Mr. Brown in the building now. You got Ms. Holden in the building now. You got Mr. Latney in the building now. You got Ms. Sharon Smith in the building now. See, if you wanted real parental involvement, you would go to the right people and not pay consultants and pay people hundreds and thousands of dollars, okay, to make up fake meetings, okay, and get nothing done. Because at the end of the day, Newark Public Schools is in distress. And our children, our students, my family is hurting, okay? All these consultants we pay to do nothing, to look good, to drive these fancy cars. At the end of the day, our kids not eating. Are we serious? And this board, I'm very highly upset at all of you guys. Ms. Anderson, unfortunately, I have to say this. Your attitude doesn't show me that you care. We lost a student from Barringer High School over some nonsense. Killed. Over something I'm sure could have been involved. If this board didn't lay off the social workers, could have got worked out in the school, okay? If this board kept the good programs that we had in this district. None of this stuff is new. We got stuff in this district that's working now that we don't utilize. We had stuff that we didn't utilize. When we gonna do the work? When is this board gonna get up and do some work? Our kids are hurting out here. No one is getting service. 13th Avenue School, for example, all of those special needs students not getting service. It's criminal. And no one on this board got anything to say about that? It's criminal. And we sitting in here quiet? We talking about promoting futures, sending kids to school. How are we doing that when we're not giving our students the education that they need, the services that they need, okay? Every month, we got this fake presentation going up on the board on what you're trying to do when you're not working with the real people to do it. One note I wanted to talk about is the drug problem we got in our schools. You got rid of the SAT coordinators. That was a brilliant idea. Our kids coming into school 8:30 in the morning, high, out their mind. What are we doing about that? Nothing. What programs we have in place? None. But yet again, we just gonna sit up here quiet, looking at me like I'm crazy, like I don't know what I'm talking about. You're hurting the teachers. You're putting all this stress on the teachers in the building. They can't teach. They got so much garbage they gotta deal with. They can't teach the kids. What is going on? Okay? The
Thank you,
community
Mr.
is
Jackson.
tired. The city of Newark is tired. You better do something. It's
Thank you,
getting
Mr.
real hot.
Jackson.
It's getting real hectic. No one's listening. You're
Mr.
saying
Jackson,
thank you
very
but you're not
much.
working
We
on what
hear
I'm
you.
telling you.
Thank you, Mr.
But
Jackson.
see, when you say thank you and you don't work on my issues or you don't work on the issues
Mr.
that's
Jackson,
presented,
we
it
do
doesn't
hear
show me
you,
that
but your
listen.
time is up, sir. Thank you.
You're right. My time is up. Have a good evening.
Next speaker, Veronica Williamson. Next speaker, Donna Jackson. Next speaker, Annette Alston.
Annette Alston, Newark Teachers Association President, teacher, 26 years. Every new reform that the Newark Public School has had forced on it as of late has been detrimental to our children, students, and the teaching learning profession. We have closed community schools, now turned into charter schools that are no longer open to the community. Children can't go there after school to play in the playground or shoot basketball because it's considered private property. Parents have about as much control over the curriculum or what happens in a charter school as they do in the district school. None. The reforms within the district school amount to modern witch hunts. Witch hunts which create a climate of fear and intimidation. Teachers have called me stating that their administrator told them that anything that they say in meetings or are heard saying around the school can be used against them in an evaluation. They were told lies like if they are late 1 minute for 5 days, they can lose a day's pay or lose an increment. We know that the rule is 357. And about the increment, considering we haven't had one in 3 years, that shouldn't even be considered a threat. Based on the current proposed contract, teachers may not see an increment for another 3 years. The central office had so many hearings last year that they could not keep up with them. So what did they do? They started hearings again this year, based on tardy records of the previous year. The nurse I represented was not late at all this year, was threatened with losing 3 days' pay for being late 19 times last year. Most of the time, of that time, she was like 1 minute late. We spent more time away from our students for that particular hearing than all of her late times 100-fold. Speaking of the new evaluation tool, there is so much riding on evaluations that teachers are literally breaking down, psychologically, physically, spiritually. Administrators come in with a clipboard, write down every misstep, and call that an evaluation, or can't tell evidence from their left cheek. Many of these evaluations are so poorly written that they ought to be more concerned about their own competency than that of the teacher they are supposed to be evaluating. Then there's merit pay. I don't have time to get into the litany of problems associated with merit pay that are, again, harmful to our children and the teaching profession. So I'll just say that the carrot and stick reform has not worked anywhere. They tried it in New York, and it failed last year. They tried it in Chicago in 2006, and it failed. Michigan has a law for merit pay, and school districts are violating it. There was a comprehensive test trial in Tennessee, and in 2010, it failed. 75% of the merit pay program started about 1983 due to the Nation at Risk study, were gone by 1993. According to Diane Ravitch, education historian, merit pay has been tried over and over again and since the 1920s and has failed every time. Studies conducted by Vanderbilt University's National Center for Performances and Centers in 2010 has the most thorough trial of teacher merit pay. The results have proven that merit pay makes no difference. Why? Teachers would like to make more money, but still most work as hard as they can, whether they get a bonus or not.
Thank
Here's
you,
the
Ms.
kicker.
Alston.
Teachers
Excuse me,
I
Ms.
know
Alston.
that are coming to work early,
Thank you, Ms. Alston.
that the schools should be providing are still getting poor rating or less than they're required to reach that daggone carrot.
Ms.
Whose fault is
Alston.
that? The teacher, the administrator,
Ms.
who sits in
Alston.
her office and does paperwork the whole time and comes out only to
Thank
do
you, Ms. Alston.
evaluations so that his or her paperwork is completed. The
Ms.
school
Alston.
board, the superintendent who puts the shoddy practice
Thank you very much, Ms. Alston.
merit pay has proven to simply be an excuse to exploit teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. Good night. Okay, Ms. Austin, we're trying to proceed with the meeting. Ms. Austin,
Ms.
please observe
Austin.
the rules of decorum.
Officer West, please remove Ms. Alston.
And that concludes our public speaking segment for this evening. Excuse me, sir. Okay, thank you. Mr. Leone, if you could please just identify yourself. Mr. Leone is the NPS administrator who will be able to speak with you. Sir, I have no problem speaking with any student. Sir, excuse me, sir. We have a speakers list that we use at every meeting. Aside from that, I will speak to her. But we have just concluded the speakers who signed up. I have no problem hearing her. And I will listen to whatever you have to say at the conclusion of the meeting. I have no problem with that. I cannot hear you now, sir. You are out of order. I will hear you and the student at the conclusion of the meeting. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
The floor is now open for old and new business. Yes, Mr. Lewis.
Madam Chair, I know that the board, we requested that the superintendent report also be provided to the community. I know that it had been provided on website, but I think that it's more feasible and respectable to this community who comes out to hear what we have to say and hear the superintendent plan, that this document be provided in paper to the residents. So that's just one request I want to put on the record publicly, that I believe that this document should be accessible to the residents that come out. They shouldn't have to go and search for a printer to try to print out so they can follow along during the presentation.
Mr. Lewis, that request has been made before, and we will make that request again. Thank you.
I wanted to also touch what we just saw was educators who done had enough of being mistreated, disrespected, and misused. Educators in this city get no respect for the time that they put into our children. And the reason why I ran for this board in 2009 is because the children of this district did not have a voice. And now it comes to a time where the teachers do not have a voice. It's time that we put our political differences aside and start talking about the education of these children in this district. I disagree with merit pay, and I said the reasons why, because I think it's going to compete a competition among teachers, and I think that it's going to be more about competition and less about educating a child. Also, I want to bring up safety issues. I wanted to know what we're going to do about the outrage of violence that's happening in our schools. When we had a cheerleader being shot at Weekway High School after a practice. We have a young man who was stabbed after school at Barringer High School. Our obligation and responsibility is to make sure that the safety of every child and staff member is our priority. We have an outstanding security department, but our security department can't do it alone. We have to start holding other people accountable to make sure that our children are safe. And we have to meet with people on the state level, county level, to make sure that every child is safe. Madam Superintendent and Madam Chair, I think it needs to be done. Lunch, we talk about lunch.
Mr. Lewis, can I just very much agree with your sentiments regarding the safety piece. It's something that we all take incredibly seriously, as you know. And the chair and I have been discussing doing even more and working more with this board. It is critical that not only are the high schools safe during the day, but a lot of these incidences are occurring after school near the high schools. And as you point out, that requires partnerships with law enforcement, with community-based agencies, with families, with other community, and tragedies that occur during the school day or after near our schools are things that we, can and must and need to do more. And it is tragedy. And I applaud your advocacy and commitment. Chair Baskerville-Richardson and I have been speaking a great deal. She also has been very active on this, and we look forward to working with this board and with all of our partners because violence is something that affects everyone.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Also, we had an incident. I don't know if we had a report about what happened at Westside High School where the child his lunch was removed out of his hand because he did not pay, which then caused an outrage in the cafeteria. If we could get an update on what happened with this incident, and also we as a board asked for a data breakdown of. Excuse me. We as a board asked for a data breakdown of the school's scores as well as the community. So, Madam Superintendent, can you please let us know when will we receive the breakdown of the scores by schools?
Sorry, apologies. We said definitely before the November board meeting. The data, which is very common nationally and not different in Newark, comes in throughout the first couple months of schools. The high school grad rate gets audited, and all of that will be presented as quickly as possible, and we committed to do that before the November board meeting, and so we'll recommit to that now. I think it's great and wonderful and exactly right that folks are desiring of data and breakdown by school, because those are the kinds of conversations that I agree we need to have throughout the district. So I very much look forward to sharing that, and we are on path to meeting that commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Yes, Ms. Matthias.
Yes, I have a couple of questions about the Race to the Top application. It says that the winners will be announced before a year end. Is that year in calendar year or year in school? Okay, so by December, January, we should know something.
That's what that's what the U.S. Department of Ed currently says, but it could change.
Okay. The engagement activities list that families at initial pilot schools will learn more. Can we find out what those pilot schools are going to be?
I'm sorry, what did you say, the pilot schools?
Yeah, it says families at initial pilot schools will learn more during the last week in October.
Yes, we have some school-based forums that are taking place. We can let you know exactly where they are. The application, however, does not require us to name specific schools. It just asks us to name numbers, which gives us more time in the event we are awarded the monies to identify which ones make the most sense. So we will have initial meetings at schools where principals and teachers have expressed interest, but bear in mind that we don't have to actually name the specific schools at this time, which is a good thing, is it'll allow us more time to explore interests with
Okay, so
schools.
that's still not set yet.
No, we will have initial meetings, and we have to tell how many schools we're aiming to work with, because that determines the amount of the grant. But then the actual explicit naming of the schools doesn't have to occur until after we know whether or not we've received the funds, and how many funds we've received will let us know how many schools we can work with.
Okay, and you know, this is just semantics, but the wording suggests that it may be set now, so maybe just adding potential pilot schools. And then for the enrollment audit, I know for the district, we won't expect to get numbers until the November meeting, but do we have, or do we know when we can expect the charter enrollment numbers to see if those match with the state have projected?
Typically, we have received charter school enrollment numbers now already, and we pay against those numbers. The reassessment of those numbers usually doesn't occur till sometime January, February. So we don't get it's not as though I'm going to get a report after October 15th, as I do for the district.
So just based on the information that we have now, did they meet their projected numbers?
No, that number was revised downward
Okay. So
from the original projection, but there's still a potential gap in our budget in terms of what we budgeted for and what has been projected for charters.
I'm sorry, can you explain that again?
We can share, there's an initial projection the state gives. We internally make our own projection based on past trends. Then there's the actual number. So basically, there's what the state projects, there's what we project looking at historical trends, and then there's who actually shows up according to, you know, what happens at the beginning of this year. So we can share with you all three of those numbers. What the SBA is saying is that the state projected a high number, we project our projections, we're actually pretty close. To what actually showed up, albeit still lower than the states. That's the short answer. We can give you the specifics if you want. They don't get updated again, but until January. But we do know what they projected, what we projected, and who they're saying arrived already.
Old new business, Mr. Jeffries.
Mr. Brown raised an issue about an issue I hear a lot from community members too, which is the status of the Renew schools, particularly the additional pieces that we're going to add. I know the technology learning is basically in at all the Renew schools based on the presentation we received previously. Can the community receive a kind of status of where the other three pieces stand? The social services, wraparounds for children, the adult ed, so that parents can improve their skills to not only get better jobs for themselves, but to support their kids in their learning, and then the extended learning time as well.
Yeah, we can provide that at the next meeting if you would like by school. Part of the extended time has to do with available resources, which we're just making available now, and some of the adult education and community-based education program is being provided by local CBOs. So we can, by school, share an update for this body and for the community at the next meeting.
Mr. Kenny.
I think this is a question that supports what Danique was requesting regarding whether the schools that we are leasing have met their classroom enrollment numbers. For example, when I drive past the old Dr. Martin Luther King, and I see a number of classrooms that are dark during classroom days, and just my assumption that those classes are not being used. So just want to get an idea, since we're leasing the space to a number of our charter school providers, what are their enrollment numbers? Are they meeting their enrollment numbers? Since that was one of the big issues regarding reducing the amount of buildings that we use, that we decided to lease to other providers. The second thing is we requested a minority hire and also termination from the summertime regarding teachers, administrators, as well as where the age, the experience, and the residents as well. That was an issue that came up during the summertime where a number of people we talked about the hires not living in the state of New Jersey, not the city of Newark or the county of Essex. And we just want to get an idea of who they are, where they came from, and if we find a lot of them are coming into the district, how do we source those individuals here in the city of Newark and the state of New Jersey so we can hire those people who are relevant to this community. For example, at Chancellor Avenue School, we have the demographics of those who came into Chancellor Avenue does not reflect the people who actually attend the school. So that's a major concern by a number of people who actually go to the school, as well as Camden Street. I can't say Camden Middle anymore, that doesn't exist. Camden Street as well. Another issue, I think the lady brought up was about Lafayette School. Not just Lafayette, but also George Washington, Carver, Madison. Those schools find themselves used as parking lots during the weekends and off hours. And if we can just not allow individuals to use those facilities, which further deteriorates the playground space for our young people during school hours. Last thing, three other issues. We also talked about middle school and elementary school, the pass-fail numbers, as well as the summer school data as well. I hope that we can get that information by the next board meeting so we get an idea of exactly how our young people did coming out of last year, going into this year. Last issue, in terms of hires, we have 2 vacancies that I thought that we were identifying and looking for the right hires. One is a director of human resources. We haven't had a director of human resources since April 2011, as well as we don't currently have a director of academic services. Are we planning to fill those positions? Do we decide to phase those positions out? What do we plan to do with those positions, if we can have an answer to that? And, last thing, Angel brought up this issue regarding his introduction to the ACTs and his classmates. Do we plan to incorporate ACT, SAT preparation, and can we get when and who is going to provide that particular service for our students, since that is the criterion that we're using to determine funding and determine resources as well.
Mr. Kenny, that was a number of questions. Some of them, I think, had been answered, but what particular question do you want a response to now, or are these questions that you're going to submit for follow-up?
Sure.
Because it was a number of questions. I just want to know, what to do with those questions.
So, sure, thank you for the follow-up. I know we can't do Lafayette, George Washington, and Madison tonight. I know that can't be answered. What can be answered is Director of Human Resources and maybe Director of Academic Services. Is there a plan to actually hire a Director of Human Resources? Is there a plan to hire a Director of Academic Services? If those positions are being phased out, then what is the plan to replace the work that person is entrusted to do?
Madam Chair, Mr. Kenny, we are still in the search for the role for the Chief Academic Officer, but I am pleased to introduce to you this evening the hire that we've just made effective of October 15th for our Director of Human Resources, Mr. Victor Velasquez. Victor, can you just stand for a moment?
Thank you. The other question was regarding ACT and SAT prep. Since we have one of our young people up here, maybe we can get an idea. Is that going to be, we are going to have preparation courses for this year for students who are going to take the ACTs and SATs?
We will prepare a more detailed briefing about all the ACT activities for this body and the community at the next meeting, but the short answer is there's an action plan at every school, and we're happy to summarize that, in writing for you and for others at the next board meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one last question. We asked at the business meeting, are we planning to have a college fair this year, the same college fair that was led by Roger Leone years ago, that was at the Prudential Center, that provided a number of different services, whether it was introducing young people to colleges, helping them prepare their essays, how to interview, a number of different skill sets that they can use to make sure they transition from high school into college.
We have, each high school has a very specific plan with regard to college knowledge, and those particular, again, we're happy to share them. What we've found here, and it's been true in elsewhere where I've worked on college readiness, is that often the smaller, tailored plans that are carried out by schools and those that are closest to the school can be most effective, but we're definitely open to sharing that. The other thing that we're working on is a youth campaign with some of our young leaders, and we hope to have some, exciting milestones to share about that. So we're basically tunneling at it from two directions, one being school-based, which is important and often the most successful, because that which is closest to the school often draws the most folks, and you get leaders like Mr. Mills and others doing school-based activities, and then a youth-based campaign that we're working with leaders on, young leaders on. So we can share those with you for your feedback, and look forward to augmenting that.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Matias?
So I just wanted to reference one of the voting items that we had today was on the amendment to the budget, and the fact that we lost, or not lost, but the budget that was projected in March came short about $5 million. And if our lovely SBA can just explain that a little bit, because I'm not sure if all the board members understood what happened there.
First of all, could you just, so people can look back, specify which item?
That would be the agenda item 10, the 2012-2013 revised budget. And since we're getting ready to enter another budget cycle, and that number has decreased, substantially, a drop in the bucket for Newark, but substantially, if we can just make sure that all the board members are clear on that.
The particular item that Board Member Matias is referring to is the resolution that was approved by the board this cycle, indicating a modification to the district's budget. The modification was approximately $5 million. Not a significant amount in the budget. It is in the area of grants, specifically Title I. When doing a budget, the timing between both your budget and the allocation of funds from various sources does not necessarily match up in terms of when you're told how much you will receive. So projections are made or put into the budget based on last year's figures. This year within Title I, there were some reductions in certain different types of title funds, and that resulted in a modification of $5 million, which I would say is not significant and is not a loss to the budget.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two things I wanted to point out. One thing is the advisory board meeting schedule that's on the website and also in our packet is invalid, so we can fix that. Also, Madam Superintendent, something I wanted
excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis. Is there something specifically?
The whole schedule is wrong. It's an old schedule.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we'll look.
The other thing is, Madam Superintendent, my job is to govern, and understand that your job is to manage. So I'm not going to step into management, but I just want to suggest that when it comes to, looking at people with skills to run our department, that we give Norkers the opportunity, and a fair opportunity to serve in the school system, because too many times I've seen hires, and a lot of hires do not reflect, do not have the background of being Newark residents, taxpayers in this city. That's all I want to say.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Jeffries.
I just thought it was important to remind the board, to remind the community. A couple issues were raised by one of the parents as well as some board members about the lack of playground space, the lack of available facilities. Lafayette, we should remember, was supposed to be replaced by a new school paid for by the state. Madison came up. Madison is supposed to be replaced by a new school paid for by the state. Carver came up. Carver is supposed to undergo extensive renovations paid for by the state. We're supposed to have 35 new schools paid for by the state. Based on court order, we got 5. We're supposed to have 30 major renovations of existing schools. We got 0. And so I think it's very important when we have these conversations about facilities and how we have very old buildings that may not be equipped with what our kids need for 21st century education. We should remember that our children have an entitlement to these facilities. And so many of these conversations we have around co-location and fighting for space, we wouldn't have to have if the state did what it was supposed to do years ago by court order and build the almost 60 either new schools or new projects that were not built. And so I think it's very important for us to remember that as a board, and for our parents and community to recognize that we have a right to these facilities. They weren't built. We need to work with our partners at the state level to hold the state accountable for providing our kids the facilities they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Plaza.
I actually have a question for Ms. Anderson. Is the district planning on rolling out the ACT again this year? And when? Actually,
Same time it would be last year.
same time. Okay. Because and definitely we'll definitely follow up with if there's going to be any prep. Because as we all know, the ACT is a college.
Can we hear from the student representative, please? Order.
Because as we all know, the ACT is a college entrance exam, and we definitely don't want a lot of students going into the test rooms not knowing what the test is, how they're going to be tested, and what type of material is going to be on there.
Yep, definitely, and we'll look forward to.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I couldn't hear Mr. Plaza because there was so much noise in the back, and I really think we deserve to hear what Mr. Plaza has.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jeffries. Mr. Plaza, if you could just maybe pull the mic a little bit closer also, that might help. Thank you.
What do you want me to repeat, the question or what I asked about?
Repeat the whole thing.
Excuse me, may I please have order? Mr. Wheeler, I would appreciate some cooperation.
We were talking
Thank
about
you.
the students wanting to have additional information regarding ACT timing, preparation, and content. And so what I was about to say is, again, we will prepare a more robust briefing for this body, and we'll seek your counsel before we meet to make sure that you think it's an adequate plan as the student rep on this board.
Thank you very much.
You got it.
Thank you. Ms. Mathias?
I don't mean to keep bouncing back to this, but I did have a follow-up question. The federal government is proposing to cut funding in education, and I'm assuming that Newark would be affected by that. And per New Jersey SBA, several districts have submitted resolutions to the federal government asking that it not be cut, and I think that this board should entertain that as well.
Okay, can we have further discussion after the meeting in reference to that?
We can.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion
So
by
moved.
Ms. Mathias. Move. Second by Spade. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, everybody. See you in November.